Hi everybody, it's John back again here with another aircraft model inbox review. Today is a bit of a special review for me. I did a video back on Matchbox models and what I think Matchbox models can bring to the modelling community. I think it was called Matchbox the Best Starter Kits. And today I'm going to be reviewing what is quintessentially a Matchbox. It's not just a Matchbox kit. It's the first ever Matchbox release ever made by Lindsay Productions company Matchbox Incorporated. But I'm doing the review on the Revell release of the same kit. It's the same kit, but it's the Revell boxing of it. So basically, without no further ado, we'll just come away from this banking image of a Hawker Fury Mark 1. I think this is K, I think it's K, is it 3393? I think it's from the Shuttleworth collection. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure. But that's a Hawker Fury Mark 1 as viewed from above. So anyway, boxing history. We'll just take those pictures off. The boxing history of this kit goes back to 1972 when the model was originally released by Matchbox models under the ownership of Lesney Productions Company Limited, and this was released under their purple range, which was originally released as a lot of 20 models leading up to 1973, but 19 models in the first year of 1972, and the Hawker Fury was their first plastic kit number 1, PK1. This was the first boxing of the kit, and the way you can tell a Type 1 box is that it has a complete lifting box lid. The whole box comes off the top of the box, contented box underneath, revealing all the parts underneath. We'll just go through to the next photo. This is what you had, there we go. This is what you had on the back of a Type 1 box. But I also wanted to show you this because this is significant. The major difference between the Revell kit and the Matchbox kits, there are actually three major differences. The first is in the variants that are covered by the Matchbox model. There were two variants covered, an RAF version from number 43 Squadron, based at, I think they were based at Hendon. And the Furies obviously were a very big favourite of the RAF at air displays for formation flying and aerobatics and whatnot. And the RAF number 43 Squadron, I'm sure they were based at RAF Hendon, and they performed quite a lot of the air shows throughout the 30s. And the other version is the Royal Yugoslavian Air Force. Always makes me laugh that they spelt Yugoslavia with a J instead of a Y. Don't know whether that was an overlook by the people that were responsible for marketing and printing the boxes, but it always made me laugh that. So that's basically what you got on the back of a Matchbox Type 1 box. That's the flip lid. The other thing I wanted to show you is because Matchbox built their models in two colours and Revell only produced them in one, I just wanted to show you the stages of how the plastic moulds changed throughout the years. This is still the Type 1 box. This is what you got inside a Type 1 box. I'll just highlight it here. There are Yugoslav markings and tail flashes. That's all the RAF markings. You had a little tiny sprue here which contained a windscreen, and that's your standard Matchbox multi-pose stand. And then in all the purple range boxes you had a purple coloured instruction leaflet like this. Each one of the kits up to PK20 would have had a purplised, this is only in the first 2 years, they would have had a purplised instruction leaflet. As the years went through the 70s, a lot of the models were produced with different colour instruction leaflets. Some were orange, some were blue, some were green and some were white. But usually if you got a white one in an early box, it's usually a photocopy. So yeah, but the sprues were on the Type 1s and Type 2 boxes, I think leading up to the Type 3s, the sprues were basically blue and buff, light sand sort of colour like this, and those went through until the Type 3 boxes, and we'll show you the Type 3. But the next kit was a 1974 release. 1973 release. This is a Type 2 box, and the way you can tell a Type 2 box is it's very similar to a Type 1 box, but it has a logo here after the Matchbox Hawker Fury font writing, which marks as a 2-colour kit. And also the box opens at both ends rather than a flip-top lid, so that you had 2 ends opening up and you could take the sprues and instructions leaflets out from the ends of the box rather than lifting them out. So that's a Type 2 kit. 1974 brought you the Type 3 kit, and they changed the box only very, very slightly by taking the 2-colour kit logo from above the wings location here to the bottom corner here. Again, it's a box that opens up at both ends, but there was very little change. The plastic stayed the same right up until Type 3. And in Type 4 1975, this is a Type 4 box. The only way you can tell a Type 4 box from a Type 3 box is it has the word marquee written in the bottom right hand corner. And this is because I think the kits were either marketed in Europe for the first time, or they may have been licensed built by a company in France. And the word marquee, I'm pretty sure, means model kit. But everything else about this box is the same. Open end box, but there is a major difference. And the major difference comes in the sprue. In the 1975 release, the sprue colours changed from blue and buff to yellow and silver grey. Same kit inside, again, all the plastic is identical, but I just wanted to show you the difference in the sprue colours so that you could date the kit if you bought one, you can date the kit. After 1975, in a Type 4 box, the colours went over to yellow and silver. Type 5 box, they changed the entire outlook of the entire boxing for Matchbox. And the 1982 release Type 5 box was, I believe, the last boxing by Matchbox. I'm sure this was the last, but no, sorry, this was the second to last boxing by Matchbox, the Type 5. The Type 5s were released in 1982, and the 82 box went right through until about 1990, I believe, when the Type 6 box came out. And I'll explain to you the differences between the Type 5 and Type 6 boxes. But they changed the box out of all recognition by producing this yellow, orange and red border band, which went above a black base to the box. Again, it was a different colour, a different photograph showing the image on the front box, and the logo changed slightly as well to like the more modern logo for the 80s. And you can see the sale price there, £5. They were getting quite expensive. Matchbox were running into serious troubles by the 80s, and they were becoming quite expensive. When they were first released, I think, bearing in mind that the purple range was one of the first models I ever bought, I believe the price of them were about 45 pence. But by 1982, I think I might have bought my first kit in 1975, but by 1982 they'd gone from about 50p a box to £5. So that was the sort of problems that Matchbox were having at the time. Type 5 box went to Type 6 box, and again this box looks very similar, doesn't it, to the Type 5, but you have a difference here in that this little tiny logo here is not present on the Type 5 box. And again, you have to understand that the box opens up at the ends. There is no flip-top lid, and hasn't been since 1973. But this is a Type 6 box. This was released in 1990, and this was the last box that the Hawker Fury was released in as a model by Matchbox. I do believe this went right up to about 1996, which was the year when Matchbox sold the lease to Revell to produce Matchbox kits in Matchbox boxes, but the sprue tended to be one colour. But yeah, so that's basically the history of the Matchbox model boxes and the changings, going from 1972 to 1990. And the model I'll be reviewing today is this one. This is the Revell 2010 release under a brand new model number of 04693. Again, it's exactly the same kit inside, but the sprues are one colour, they're all grey plastic, as you'll see in a minute when we get into the in-box review. The kit is identical except for the markings. The markings on this model are not of the aircraft with the red flash on the fin. They have predominant yellow markings on the aircraft, and again you'll see that when we get into the in-box review. So that's the Mark I Hawker Fury boxing history, right from Matchbox's initial 1972 release to 1990. So we'll take this picture off. That's actually an internal image of a Defiant turret fighter there, but we'll just spin this round. I want to bring this camera around to show you. You know, the usual gun flads. That's how it goes. And this is basically the model that I'll be reviewing today. This is a kit that I bought probably about 2 years ago now. Can't remember how much I paid for it, but I did buy it in a shop. I didn't buy it off eBay or anything like that. So it was a brand new purchase from a shop. And I'll go through the costings of these kits as to how much they are now. So you can get an idea of how much it's going to cost if you want to buy one of these things. So what we'll do, we'll open up the box. The box art on this is their usual blue coating boxes, you know, open up at the end. And I'm going to give you another tell of the fact that it's a Matchbox kit. I'm going to show you how to ID a Matchbox kit. I did cover this actually on the other Matchbox video that I did. But basically Matchbox kits were built on sprues that exactly fitted the Matchbox boxes. And the Revell boxes are slightly larger than the Matchbox boxes. And this is proof that it's a Matchbox kit. Can you see how the sprues, they're about 20% too short, aren't they, for the box? Well, if this was a Matchbox boxing, the box would be perfectly sized for the sprues, the plastic that go into the box. So basically that's the box. We'll just get that out of the way for now. This is the Gumpf, health and safety Gumpf you get in all sorts of Revell kits these days. And we'll go through the decals in a minute. We'll just go through the instructions first. Typical Revell instructions, you get a photograph of the model on the top of the instruction sheet there. The instruction sheet is about A4, which is normal. Open to the first page. These photographs here with hints and tips, these are very typical Matchbox hints and tips boxes. So these were taken straight from the Matchbox instruction leaflet. And the thing I like about Matchbox in the Revell box is the instruction leaflets belie an awful lot of the Matchbox traits, because they're a true hybrid of Matchbox and Revell's theology. And I always find it interesting. You have here the Revell key to the IDing of what you have to do. And during the production of this kit, you've got decal application, decal set, glue, do not glue, optional tape up. That'll be like when you tape the fuselage halves up to set them. I use jigs for that, but you know they're suggesting you use sellotape. You've got something here. Let me just get my glasses on. That's clear parts. That's a clear part ID for the pin that leads to the part. You've got on the other side. This one here is. Oh God, I can't read that. It's so small. Even my glasses can't read it very well. I think that says previously assembled part, cut with a knife. That's set aside to dry for a certain length of time. Each clock will have a certain number of minutes on it. That one tells you, I think it's 25 minutes. Repeat this operation number of times. That one would be 2. So that's your key for the IDing of what you do and the IDing of the types of parts. And then here you have a paint key, A to I. And these just denote the different colours that you use to paint the model during its construction and after the model's been put together. Now then, on the top of the instructions, before we go into this part of the instructions, I just want to bring your attention to this part of the instructions, because this part, if I can bring you that quite up close to the camera there, that's actually a cotton thread spool symbol. And this is something that Matchbox didn't do. They didn't do with any of their instructions, because you have to remember that Matchbox aimed their kits at people between the ages of, I would say, 7 and 15. That was their market, that was who they were aiming all of their kits for, that sort of age. But Revell, they want to aim their kits for people between the ages of, say, 7 and 90. They're trying to broaden their horizons to appeal to every type of modeller, and that is a rigging plan. They're on the plans, you'll see them in a minute, but there is actually a rigging plan for the Hawker Fury kit, which wasn't included in the Matchbox theology. It wasn't included at all, they just didn't think about it, but Revell obviously, they're interested in explaining how to rig this kit for people who want to rig it. On the top of here you've got a parts plan. I always like the parts plan because it enables you to ID any of the sprues that have missing parts on them. And also for small parts, for instance part 10 here, which is the propeller retainer, you can see exactly which sprue part 10 will be on. And part 10 is here above the lower wing on sprue number 1. And I've always liked that idea. I always think Revell hit it right on the nail there. It was a brilliant idea. So you've got 2 sprues here, plus a transparency sprue. That shows you the windshield that goes in front of the pilot's position. So basically, we go through the stages of the plans. There are 15 stages of plans, but only 14 are plastic construction. The 15th is for the rigging explanation and assembly. So basically you start by painting the pilot, and then you set him aside to dry. In section 2 you're putting the seat onto the floor pan. In section 3 you're placing the floor pan and seat inside the fuselage in the cockpit area, and then putting the 2 fuselage halves together. Section 4 you're assembling the propeller assembly with the front of the engine cowling. Section 5 is tail empennage. Section 6 are the tail empennage support struts, and section 7 is the forward upper engine cowling, which also houses the fuselage interplane strut supports. And there's something interesting about this particular kit, which I'll go over when I go over the sprues in a minute. Section 7 is to put section 6's Section 8 is to put Section 7's assembly into place, and Section 9 is to put a instrument panel decal into the instrument panel section inside the fuselage, and Section 10 is to adhere to the lower wing into place and then put the interplane struts into place. Section 11 is to place the pilot windscreen, and that's actually a gun sight that goes in front of the windscreen. A lot of people think it's a machine gun, but it's not, it's a gun sight. Section 12 is to adhere the upper wing to the interplane struts and to put the engine oil cooler into place, which goes directly below the lower wing. Section 13 is to build the undercarriage assembly and the wheels, and Section 14 is to put the tail skid in place and put sub-assembly 13 and 4 into place. And that would complete the production of the aircraft. But section 15 is showing you how to rig this aircraft. There is actually somebody that I've subscribed to on his YouTube channel called Alwood's Mayhem, Modelling Mayhem, and he rigs every biplane he's ever made, and I like the method that he uses to rig his biplanes, because he uses mending thread, or I would have thought sometimes fishing line, depending on the size of the kit. But he actually drills holes into the wings, and in this case you would probably have to put some sort of latch onto the undercarriage, because you need to adhere some rigging into the undercarriage assembly. But I like the way and the methods he uses to do it, because it goes to an awful lot of trouble to make sure it goes right. Section 16 is to explains all the keys to explain how to paint the aircraft and where to put the various colours. And then you have a decal and stencil plan for the various applications on the aircraft. The decals on this kit, we'll go straight into the decals because the decals on this kit are not like the ones you got in the Matchbox original, and there's only one version, but Revell have provided you with an instrument panel as a decal, which is nice, which is here. It's quite nicely detailed, but on all biplanes I have a pet hate with all biplanes, and I probably would not be able to get round it with this one, because this one has got the aircraft serial number on the fin flash. And I really, really wish that model makers who produce models would make this transfer K2061 or 2065 as a separate decal, and then I could paint the fin flash in paint rather than messing about with the decal that's on there. What I might do is I still might paint this fin. I might paint this fin and then apply the K2065 to the actual fin after it's been painted, but cut the decal down, because when you apply decal fin flashes to the aircraft, you always have a line at the back of the rudder where the decals never meet. They never meet properly. It's impossible to get them to meet properly, and I think it just looks like a pig's ear. But maybe other people have got ideas of how to deal with it, I don't know, but I've never been able to successfully put a fin flash onto an aircraft where the entire rudder is made up of a red, white and blue strip, or a green, white and yellow strip, or whatever. But the decals on this kit, I'll just quickly go through the decals on this kit, because like Revell models, modern Revell decals are fantastic, and the decals on this are no exception. They're very, very lightly raised above the carrier sheet, and the actual carrier film behind the decals is incredibly clear, and I think these decals will go in place and they'll look superb. Yeah, very, very nice. I like the look of those decals. I was thinking about building a camouflage version of an aircraft that might have been in service before before the main event of the Battle of Britain, because they were withdrawn from frontline service during the Battle of Britain, because they just weren't up to the job of air defence. They were brought into training. Yeah, but there were 2 squadrons operating Fury fighters in 1939 in frontline service. So we'll take the sprues out. Let's just get the other thing that I find interesting about Revell kits is that they don't give you an aircraft stand, whereas if you buy an older version of this model, the Matchbox model, it will give you a multi-pose stand. But you do get, I don't know if you can see this quite nicely in the camera view here, you do get this quite nice looking windshield. I'm in the process of building a Revell Newport C28 at the moment, and you will see a video update on that kit when it's built. It's not very far away now. But the windshield on that kit is actually a plastic, it's a coloured plastic moulding with a hole in it. And it was so bad that I actually had to make my own. But that windshield looks nice and clear. It's small, and the ridges to paint the actual side frames on the window look quite good. So that looks like it's okay. We'll go through sprue number 1 first. This is the one with the 2 wings on it. Bearing in mind that this mould is originally 1972, that makes it 35 years old. Is that right? 28? No, it's 45 years old. This model is 45 years old. And I'm looking at the sprues, and I can't see any flash on this sprue at all, anywhere. There's no burring, there's no lumps. There are a couple of sinkholes, one there in the middle of the wing, but that's going to be hidden by the fuselage. There are also a few in the upper wing, but I think they're on the underside, so they're not going to be easy to see, and they're quite faint, I'll be honest with you. They will sand out really easily. So as far as the mould has been designed, I like what Matchbox originally did. There is an original Matchbox pilot. That's the pilot you got in virtually every Matchbox interwar and Second World War aircraft. You had a different pilot for post-war aircraft because they generally wore a helmet, but he is pretty much what you got in every Matchbox kit leading up to aircraft which were post-war. And a lot of people don't like Matchbox pilots. They think they're a bit strange looking, but I quite like them. They're quite well detailed. I mean, he's got a nose, a mouth, he's got flying goggles, he's got a flying helmet, he's got straps, he's got a Mae West on, he's got boots, he's got creases in his trousers, and if you turn him over on the back, you can actually see he's also got straps on the back as well, which is good because the Hawker Fury seat doesn't go all the way up to his neck. It actually only goes up to about the middle of his back. So you will be able to see quite a bit of that webbing. Because this aircraft has no enclosed cockpit, you'll be able to see right through into the cockpit interior. The rest of the parts there, you've got the oil cooler and the top and lower wing. There's the pilot seat. It's pretty basic and there's not an awful lot of detail to it. Undercarriage struts, and that looks like the trestle axle. And this part here is the gun sight, which goes in front of the windscreen. There's the propeller retainer pin, and that's the prop and the main tailplane. And they all look really, really nice. Nicely moulded, nicely crafted. Very nice piece of work. Sprue 2, which incorporates the two fuselage halves. And I'm going to talk about the interplane struts on this kit because I've seen a review done by a modeller on YouTube, and he states that the Matchbox stroke Revell Hawker Fury Mark 1 is probably the easiest biplane anybody will ever make, and there's a reason for that. And if you build the kit according to the way he builds it, which I will be because I'll be following exactly how he put the top wing on and the interplane struts, it should go together like a dream. And I'll explain how that's done. I'll also explain it in the follow-up video to show how this kit went together. But basically you've got your fuselage halves. There is some, if you can get that to focus, there is some rib lines here because the back of the Fury was actually tubular. It had a tubular airframe and rib runners going down. They weren't wooden, they were metal. The Fury was actually a stronger designed aircraft than the Hurricane in many respects because the Hurricane's rear end was all made out of wood. But the Fury was completely metal. It was metal covered in aluminium sheet, and it had a tubular interior frame. So it was actually a very, very modern fighter produced by Hawker and designed by Sidney Cam. Here you have the tail fin and rudder. Now the tail fin and rudder, I'm pretty sure, again, is tubular, but it's fabric covered like the tailplane is and like the wings are. I'm sorry, the wings are metal covered. The tailplane is metal covered. The rudder's metal. The tail fin is metal covered, but I'm pretty sure the rudder and the elevators and the ailerons are fabric covered. You also have the interplane struts. They're the ones for the wings, and these are the ones for the fuselage. And that's the top engine cowling. Two wheels. That's the forward propeller mount that goes on the front of the fuselage here. And this is the cockpit interior, the cockpit floor interior. These parts here They're the tailplane support struts. Can you see them there? There's 4 of them, 2 for each side. And now what I want to do is I just want to quickly try and ID the Matchbox IDs for you. And here we go. They're here on sprue 2. If I bring this right up focus to the camera here and let the camera focus here, you should be able to make out. Let's just make sure I've got this right up. Yeah, it's right around the right way. Let the camera focus in here. You should be able to see where it says made in, and then there's a blob of plastic over the top. That would have been made in England. And this is a Revell kit, so this proves that this is not an original Revell kit, because everything Revell designed comes from Germany. It would have been made in Germany. And on the top of this sprue, you can just see there. Can you bring that into focus there? Can you see that says PK1? PK1 was the model serial number for the very first release of the Purple Range Matchbox kits in 1972, and the Fury was PK1. It's actually marked on the Fury Matchbox Fury Mark 1 boxes. It's marked PK1. The other thing I wanted to state is also the interplane struts. These are the ones that go from the fuselage engine cowling into the underside of the top wing, and these are the ones that go between the wings themselves, the interplane struts themselves. And the way that this particular modeller built the wing on the Fury was quite clever, really, because what he did was he glued these interplane struts together, fixed them underneath the cowling here, and then fixed the cowling with the struts together into this empennage here, like so it fitted into place. There's a little bit of flash on here actually, which I didn't see before, a little bit of flash, but he put these into place, so you had the fuselage support struts for the upper wing in place, and then when all that had set dry, he actually glued the upper wing onto the interplane struts from the fuselage without touching the interplane struts at all. He hadn't jigged any of the interplane struts whatsoever. And the reason why this is because if you look at the instructions, it's not easy to see on that picture, so what I'll do is I'll go to the rigging explanation, and you'll see it on the rigging explanation quite easily. But basically, try and find them, here we go. On this picture here of the front view of the aircraft, you can see that the interplane struts are actually at an angle, and so are the ones from the fuselage. But the thing is, when you glue the interplane struts from the fuselage to the upper wing, they're already preset at the correct angle. So when you glue the top wing into place, you use the interplane struts from the fuselage as the jig to hold the main wing in the correct position. When everything's set dry, that's when you place the interplane struts between the wings into place, and you use the upper wing as a jig for both the struts. You glue the lower sections into the locating holes first, and then what you do is you push them from the outside edge into the locating holes, and they just pop in. And then the upper wing and all the struts and everything is all in the correct position. And when I saw how he did this on his video, I thought, that's really bloody clever. I didn't think of that. I was actually going to just put all the interplane struts together like I normally do on a biplane and jig them using the top wing, take the top wing back off, and then when it's all fixed and dry, you glue the top wing into place. But I actually think that's a better option, and I think it will work better. So that's the in-box review on the Hawker Fury. I will, before I close the video, just go through the technical gump about the kit, and I'll put all this away after I've finished this video, because you don't want to be going through all the watching me trying to fix all that back in. So what I'll do, I'll just quickly go through the information, and then we can close the video off. The aircraft model kit is released by Revell, and it's the Hawker Fury Mark 1. It's released in 1/72nd scale, and the Revell serial number for the kit is 04693 for the 2010 release. But this kit was originally released by Matchbox, and in 1972 through to about 1990 it was called PK1 by Matchbox. But in 1990 the release I think it was the 1990 Box 6 release. The model number changed to 40001. The original release date was 1972, and it was the first release by Matchbox on their purple range, and later released in 2010 by Revell in a Revell boxing. This is the first model in Matchbox's purple range, as I said before, and it was PK1. They did do 19 models in the first year, and it was completed in 1973 with the 20th. There are 29 grey plastic parts on 2 grey sprues plus a transparency, making 30 parts in total. The Matchbox kit, of course, will have 2 colour sprues, either blue and buff or yellow and silver grey. The Revell decals are for one version, but you do get 2 variants with the Matchbox decal releases. One, of course, is the Yugoslavian Air Force version. The kit measures 4.5 inches long by 5 inches in span, and it will sit about 1.4 inches high on its undercarriage. The kit's cost, if you go for a Matchbox kit, and I do think the Matchbox boxing of this kit is actually better in terms of value for money and better for a modeller's options. The kits cost between £5 and £15 depending on the age, condition and the greed of the seller. I've seen this kit often for sale for 15 quid, but it doesn't usually sell for that. It usually sells for between £7 and £10. The Revell kit, again, it depends on the condition of the box and how greedy the seller is, but I've seen this kit on eBay for as little as 6 quid and as much as £9.99 or £10. But you usually can get this kit in the shops. I'm just trying to see whether a price ticket's still in here. I can't remember how much I paid for this, but I've got a feeling it was £4.99. So, but it could have been £5.99. You know, it's not one of the smallest boxes. It's one of the second range boxes sizes. First impressions of the kit. Like all Matchbox kits, it is basic. It is simple to build, and even though it's a biplane kit, it's very, very easy to build using the interplane strut method that I spoke about in the video earlier. Most reviewers state that this kit is the easiest biplane model to construct, as the interplane struts are very rigid and they're easy to fit after the correct method of fitting them is carried out. The fit is superb thanks to the over-engineered parts by Matchbox, and the Revell decals are pretty good. There's not much more to add on this. I seem to remember there being an aftermarket photo edge set for this. I can't remember who did it. Probably Edward, I would have thought. But I can't see that this kit would require an awful lot of additional work, and there's not an awful lot to see through the cavity that is occupied by the pilot's shoulder and head. So I'm looking forward to this build. I think it will go together quite easily and nice. And again, a bit of nostalgia. The Fury is one of the Matchbox kits that I never built, so it will be interesting to see how it goes together. So I hope this video has been of some use. And if you like the video, have a look through my other inbox reviews. They're very informative with lots of ideas, tips and things to do. And if you like the format of the inbox reviews, subscribe and give me a like. It's very appreciated. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you in the next one. See you lads. Bye bye.